Larry, we can cancel the APB on the Turners. They're normally here 20, 30 minutes early, and here it is, just right on time. They're retired. Their grandkid just came in for spring break. All right. Well, how y'all doing tonight? I appreciate you coming out. There's plenty of seats up here on the front, right here. We are in Genesis chapter 3, Exodus chapters 3 and 4. Those two chapters go together. They just flow one right into the other. And so we're going to be basing our study tonight on the call of Moses. And what we're going to focus on is how Moses interacts with the Almighty. There's a lot here I would love to just stop and talk to you about for a while, including the extremely important Exodus 3, verse 14. I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you, where God makes that extremely important self-declaration. Well, we're looking at Moses at Mount Horeb. And we're also looking at Elijah at Mount Horeb, separated by a few hundred years. Same mountain, two different occasions, and yet they have a similar experience. And I'm afraid we may not be able to look too much at 1 Kings 19 that talks about Elijah. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to, no apologies, I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you talking about Moses. Here's a nice, pretty picture of what is supposed to be the mountain range where Sinai is. What's the other name for Mount Sinai? It's also known as Mount Horeb. Two different names, but the same mountain is our understanding. Where exactly is it? Not sure exactly, but have a good idea. And we'll look at a map here in just a second to help us out a little bit. So that's kind of a pretty scene there, but it's barren. There's just not a lot of forest there. When y'all were in Colorado and you're climbing those mountains and skiing, there's a lot of forest, trees all over the place. I don't see a lot there. Why not? It's dry. This is wilderness. And what did Moses do a lot out this way for 40 years? He wandered around. Okay, there you go. We're going to talk about the burning bush a little bit this evening. Here is an artist's rendering of that. If someone ever wanted to, say for my 50th birthday here in a couple of years, wanted to get this print so I can put it in my lounge in there with my other artwork, biblical artwork, that would be great. Honey? So what I love about Moses' life is it can be easily divided up into three periods of 40 years each. And we know how old Moses was when he left Egypt because of something that Stephen said, actually, in Acts chapter 7. So when he was 40 years old, he left Egypt. Why? Why did he leave Egypt? All right, he had murdered an Egyptian. And it was found out, and he ran away to Midian. And how long did he stay there? 40 years. While he was there, he got married, had a couple of kids. What was his father-in-law's name? Jethro. What was everybody has two names. What was Jethro's other name, by the way? Reuel, R-E-U-E-L. We talked about that recently in the auditorium, but we know him as Jethro. As Jethro. And what's really fascinating is that while Moses is living in Midian, he is learning that area, that wilderness, like the back of his hand. And throughout the 40-year wilderness wandering, where he's leading Israel, it's that very area of the world where he is leading them. It's almost as if God planned it that way. All right, here is the map. I hope you can make this out a little bit. Here you have Egypt. There's Lower Egypt, as it's called, elevation-wise, Upper Egypt, and then the Red Sea. There's those arms of the Red Sea. And so let me click on here a little bit. Midian would be over in this area. And then Sinai, the Sinai wilderness, is going to be right there. Canaan is up that way. You can see the Dead Sea, and there's the Mediterranean on the left. And where did Moses start out his life? When he became a person, where was he? In Egypt. So there's the big number one. At the age of 40, he fled to Midian. So there's number two. And while he's there in Midian, he raises his family. Would he have probably just stayed there for the rest of his life if God had not called him? I suppose so. It sure seems that way. But then he goes back to Egypt. And what does he say to Pharaoh? Let my people go. It was D. Bowman who said that his wife's favorite Bible character was Moses because he looked so much like Charlton Heston. Young people over here going, what? And then you've got him going to Sinai. So when they left Egypt, he led the children of Israel. They crossed the Red Sea. They made their way to Sinai, and they stayed there 2 years, during which they did two things. One, they established the priesthood, and two, they built the tabernacle. Those go hand in hand, though, don't they? The priesthood and the tabernacle. So Genesis, I keep saying Genesis tonight, and I mean Exodus. Exodus 25 through 40 recounts the construction of the tabernacle, and then what's the next book? Leviticus. So that's going to be talking about the Levitical priesthood. So they first construct the tabernacle, the clothing of the priests, and then they instruct the priests how to minister before God. And finally, number 5 here on the screen is going to be Canaan. Does Moses go to Canaan? Shane's going like this. What happened? All right. So he's on Mount Nebo, another mountain that we will talk about in the course of our Wednesday night studies. And he will not be able to cross into the land. That hopefully gives us a little idea of where we are in the world. Let's take a look at the excuses Moses makes here in Exodus 3. What does God want Moses to do? He wants him to go back to Egypt and say, Pharaoh, let my people go. Let's start in verse 1 of Exodus 3. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. And he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. All right. Why was this ground holy? Had Moses possibly pastured sheep this neck of the woods before? This neck of the wilderness? What made it holy? Because God is here. And this miraculous event, a bush that is burning and yet not is being consumed. We know this so well. Our culture knows this so well. But you can see there where God calls to him and says, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look to God. Why is it so important that God mentions because God mentions these names. What promises did he make to the three fathers? The three fathers had three promises: land, nation, seed. What's the land? The land of Canaan. What's the nation? The nation of Israel. And then the seed promise. Has the land promise been fulfilled as of this moment? No. What about the nation promise? Yes. In Exodus chapters 1, or really I guess Exodus chapter 1, we're told that they are a nation, but they are enslaved in Egypt. And that's why Moses has to go back and deliver them. What we're studying here is mountain moments with God. We're talking about people who met God at the mountain, and it changed them. It had a profound effect on them. And that's what we're going to try to emphasize tonight. Here is God talking to him, and I'm going to skip over some of the details here. But what you have is God not just recounting, hey, this is my history with the people and their plight, but he's really emphasizing how I am going to be faithful to my promises. The promises I made. That's why we're going to deliver the children of Israel, because I made these promises to bring them. Verse 9, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I've also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said to God, here am I, send me. No, I know that's in the Bible, though. Oh, that's Isaiah 6. And that's a similar situation. It is a theophany. There's a lot of similarities. But Moses' theophany, you know, we sing that song, High Above Us. Jeff likes it so much. That theophany, this one becomes the paradigm for several others that appear in the Bible. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, John on the island of Patmos. And they come into the presence of God, and they see him in his glorious state. And so here is Moses terrified. He's scared to death. And I'm trying to think of any other prophet who had such an appearance by God who rejected the invitation to go. Jonah didn't have a theophany per se, but he was called by God and he refused. Isn't that something? And what we're going to see is that God is going to become angry with Moses, but it never says that he became angry with Jonah per se. There was anger in Jonah's story, though. Who was angry? Jonah was angry with God. So we're treading on some thin ice here tonight. And what I want to look at for a few minutes is the excuses that Moses makes. And I think Karen's exactly right. This is mirroring, this is anticipating the story of Jonah and how he was told by God, go, and he refused to go. That just doesn't happen very often. What is Moses' first excuse? There's four excuses. The first excuse is in chapter 3, verse 11. The second one, chapter 3, verse 13. And then chapter 4, verse 1, verse 10 have the next two. And that's why these chapters just go together. What's his first excuse? Who am I? You know, Isaiah is the one who said, here am I. He says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? What does that denote to you on the part of Moses? He doesn't have confidence in himself. Did he when he was 40? When he was 40, why don't we take a moment and look at Acts 7? Because this is divine commentary. We get to know what's going on in Moses' head. I'm looking at verse 22 and verses 22 and 23. Acts 7. Moses was instructed, Stephen says. Moses was instructed in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. He was mighty in his words and deeds. Remember that. He was mighty in his words and deeds. When he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Israel. And we see that he defends one Hebrew by killing an Egyptian. And then the following day, verse 26, he appeared to them as they were quarreling and tried to reconcile them, saying, "Men, you are brethren. Why do you wrong each other?" And the man who was wronging his neighbor thrust him aside, saying, "Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? You going to kill me like you did the Egyptian?" So here's the situation that Stephen is recounting, and his audience would have known this story very well, just like you know it very well. But you've got the Egyptian taskmaster beating up on a Hebrew slave. Moses looks this way and that. And what does he do to the Egyptian taskmaster? Murders him in cold blood, and puts him in the sand. And then the next day, what does Moses do? He goes back out there and takes a look around and says, "Well, what can I do today? What can I fix today?" And what does he want to fix? Two Hebrews fighting with each other. And Moses says, "Well, I'm Moses. I know what to do here. I'm 40 years old. I know exactly what to do." And he starts trying to get these guys to, especially the stronger one, say, "Hey, buddy, cut this out." And what does he say to him? What does the bully Hebrew say to Moses? "Who made you? Who died and made you king of the hill? Who made you a ruler and a judge?" Who made Moses ruler and judge? Well, God did. But not right now. Why not? Why couldn't Moses have led the children of Israel 40 years earlier? Instead of being this older, still gets going. I mean, for 85 years old, Rob does pretty well. He gets around pretty well. So, 65, sorry. Never mind. Moses is not like, I'm not trying to suggest that Moses was this real decrepit fella. But imagine being 40 years younger. And he's ready. Let's go. Come on. Why didn't God use 40-year-old Moses? Why does God use 80-year-old Moses? Any ideas? Any thoughts?
One of the things that it might show is God's power and not Moses' power. 40, he may have had the attitude that I didn't.
Okay. So Moses would have emphasized himself too much. I heard a voice over here, but I don't know whose it was. Okay. How old is Walker? 42. So Walker's past that age. He knows better now. Boy, I tell you, when I was a teenager, I knew everything. Then I got married and found out I didn't know nothing. Moses thought he knew it all, but he had to learn the hard way. I don't know anything. 80-year-old man is going to go back and do what a 40-year-old man was ready to do. I think that is important for us to think about. Who am I? What does God say? Man, Moses, you're well educated. I mean, you're very capable. Remember what you did to what does God say here in verse 12? It's not about you. Who's it about? Who's the focus here in verse 12? God is.
It's also the focus in verse 8.
Oh, absolutely.
So I have come down, put them power. Even before Moses says, "Who am I?" It doesn't matter who you are, Moses, because I'm going to be.
All right. In this whole scene here, chapters 3 and 4, and really as the entire Exodus, it's not about Moses. It's never about Moses. It's about God. And that needs to be a strong point we see. Excuse number 2, spend enough time on excuse number 1. Excuse number 2, verse 13. Well, God, who am I? Okay, all right, you're going to be with me. Number 2, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, they ask me, what is his name? Well, what shall I say to them? And what does God say? I am that I am. And that's a verse I would just love to spend a lot of time talking about. Suffice it to say, this is God's magnificent declaration of himself. I am all powerful. I have always been, I always will be. I am who I am. I have always been. I will always be. That's what you need to tell the folks. This is about God and his power and the promises that he has made. He mentions those in the verses that continue here. And God starts telling him what's going to happen in these verses. You're going to go back and you're going to have your way with Pharaoh, and then you're going to bring the people right back here to this mountain. That's what you're going to do. Go. You need to go do it. But as we move into chapter 4, Moses still hasn't said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." What does he say now? Chapter 4, verse 1. Well, what if they don't believe me? What if they don't listen to my voice? For they will say, "The Lord did not appear to you." And God says, "Well, you got me there. We might as well just give up." No, God has an answer for that too, doesn't he? What is it? What you got in your hand there? What you got there? There's this old-timey sermon. If I haven't preached it here, I will one of these days. The topical lesson of what's in your hand. What you got there? What's the point of that? What would be the point of a sermon like that? What Moses, what you got there? Oh, it's nothing. It's just a staff. Just a little shepherd's staff. Use it for sheep. But what did it become? I can't hear you. Okay, it becomes a snake, but it became an instrument for defeating an empire. How about that? And we'll talk about that. Why don't we do that right now? And I'll come back to that chart. Take a look at 4 references to the staff. And it's going to be passed around between Moses and Aaron. Take your staff that's in your hand, and you shall do the signs whenever he's going to go to Egypt. In chapter 7, stand on the bank of the Nile. And so what's about to happen here? The trickery with the serpent. And then chapter 17, what is he doing there? Take your staff, with which you struck the Nile, and what are they going to do? That's when he brings forth water. And these are just 3 quick little examples. There are many times when you have this same exact staff, this ordinary staff, and it does something extraordinary again and again. Because it was really a special staff. By the way, what tree did the staff come from? What kind of tree? Almond. How do you know that? That's another story, isn't it? That staff is going to end up being placed in the very ark of God, or in the tabernacle. I'll say that, in the tabernacle. This ordinary little staff. What does that tell you? There's a lesson there, isn't there? Are you laughing at me? Did I say something wrong? Oh, they're laughing at you. Uh-oh. I am incredulous. Incredulity. Incredibility. I think that's supposed to say incredulity. I think I mistyped that. Oh, well. Sorry. Verse 10. Chapter 4, verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue, heavy of speech." And what does God say to him? "Oh man, you're right. I'm so sorry." No, what does God say? "Who do you think made you? I made you." So when somebody says, "Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I just can't do it," what are they basically saying to God? I'm not hearing it. You didn't do a good job, God. I'll tell you, God did not do a good job with me being a handyman. Do we have to do everything? Do we have to know how to do everything? But are there some talents and abilities that even I have that I can use? How about you? Here's God taking the excuse out of his hand, and he's saying, What is man's mouth? Who makes the mute? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now, let me tell you, I'm going to give you some help. Your brother Aaron, 3-year older brother, he is going to come and he's going to help you. You're going to be like God to him, and he'll be your prophet, where you instruct him what I tell you to do. And so it's going to be a dynamic duo as they go before him. And those are the 4 excuses. And I know we went through those very hurriedly. There's a lot there that we just skipped over. But what do you finally see here in verse number 13? Send somebody else.
Or he says, send whomever you will.
That's right.
And God will send him.
Okay, so a literal translation is, Lord, send whomever you will. That's not even as literal as it could be. I don't remember exactly. But please send someone else is how the ESV paraphrases that, giving us the sense here. I don't want to go. There are some people who say, Moses is saying, all right, Lord, you want me to go, then I'll go. But that doesn't make sense. Why not? Verse 14. What'd you say? The Lord gets angry with him. The Lord's been pretty patient with him so far, hasn't he? And the Lord becomes angry with him. And he says, go! I'm telling you, I've told you to go. You take this staff, and that staff is just going to do some amazing miracles. That ordinary staff. Okay, I want to bring up these verses. They're outside of the confines of our study, but we're so close, and these really go along with what we're talking about here. You have these numerous statements where God begins and ends with "I am the Lord." There in verse 2, he says, "I am the Lord." And then again in verse 6, and then he has these statements. So it really starts back in verse 2. But here's some of these right here. Verse 6, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm with great acts of judgment. I will take you to be my people. I will be your God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has brought you from under the burden of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you for possession. I am what I said I was back in Exodus 3, verse 14. This is powerful, and I hope I'm able to do a little bit of a representation of just how powerful it is, even though we're only talking very briefly. What can we learn from this mountain encounter that God has with this great statesman, the lawgiver, Moses? What do we learn about ourselves and about God? Okay, we can't do everything. How about, and I know you would agree with this, we can't do anything without God. We can't do anything without God. What's the first thing you grab when you wake up? What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Get your glasses, okay. I don't do that because I don't wear glasses. What's the next thing you do? What? Okay, y'all, come on. What do you do? All right, let's just scratch the bathroom there, okay? Okay.
What answer do you want?
I'm asking. We're getting there. Why'd you say your phone? Because we talked about this recently? Okay. So should I ask it that way? How many of you within the first few minutes of waking up look at your phone? Wow, the teenagers don't. The young adults don't look at their phones within the first few minutes of waking up. Wow! You come back and then do what? Okay. I'm not doing a very good job of bringing this out. It's my fault, not yours. But let me just ask this, and I'm not looking for an answer to this question. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because of me. Do I first reach out to God, or do I first reach out to my phone? And you might be smart alecky and say, oh, I do both because I'm reaching for my phone and I'm reading the Bible. Yeah, What do we look at when we first wake up? We got our cup of coffee, the caffeine's flowing, and what do we start doing? Got to check our mail, got to check social posts, got to check the news. Arlie, you going like this? That's a man thing? I don't think that's a man thing. I think that's a people thing. So if I were to preach a sermon on this, and I hope one of these days I will, because I need it, I might suggest maybe we ought to consider when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is we reach out to the great I am. We acknowledge I need you more than I need anything else. But what are some other applications we can make about Moses and the excuses that he makes and how God counters every one of these?
We might make the same excuses when it comes time for us to, maybe teach a Bible class or to talk to somebody about our faith. We may say, I can't talk, or I'm scared, or whatever. And the thing about it was, and we said this already, that it wasn't about Moses, it was about God.
Right.
And it's the same thing with us. It's not about us. It's about God. Now, do we prepare? Yes. And are we worried? Yes. But, God is going to take care of us if we're trying to do the right thing and teaching, and we're studying, and we're doing those things. God is going to be with us. And it's not about us. It's about Him and His message. And I think that people run into that same problem, the exact same problem Moses ran into, full of excuses, and what they just really need to do is go about the work.
Yeah, I'm good at making excuses myself. And we need to put our trust in God. Yes, ma'am.
God didn't take, probably doesn't take our excuses.
He probably doesn't take our excuses, even as He didn't. Do you read these chapters and are reminded of them? Because I know you already know them. Do you find yourself saying, yeah, I need to have more trust in God? Isn't that what God is asking Moses to do? Trust me. I'm asking you to do something. I know it's momentous. I know you tried to do it before, kind of your own way, but let's do it my way. In fact, what's really interesting is when Moses does go to Pharaoh in chapter 7, Moses seems to handle it his own way. He doesn't say, now, Lord, how exactly am I supposed to do this? And he botches it. And that's when Pharaoh says, all right, we're gonna make this even worse, harder on the Egyptians. And one of these days, I hope we'll study Exodus and we'll see some of that more closely. But Moses had to learn the hard way that it's not about him. It's always about the Lord. And that's what these mountain moments are all about, helping us to see a different perspective. When Moses left Egypt, what was he? What was his status, his social status? And there's a lot of speculation there as well, just how important he might have been. But who adopted him? Who raised him as her own? Pharaoh's daughter. What the Hebrew writer says is that he implies very strongly that Moses could have had a life of luxury. But he gave that up. Do you think he was discouraged during this 40-year period, or do you think he had just kind of found happiness? We don't know. We don't know. But his life had something far more important to accomplish. All right, let's go back to Horeb. We just got a few minutes left. And I'm just going to jump into it here with some of the questions without looking at the text because we are so familiar with it. And because next week, when we get back together, we're going to look at not Elijah at Mount Horeb, but Elijah at Mount Carmel. Totally different situation. And that's going to be 1 Kings 18. And I'll remind you of some of the things we're going to talk about briefly here. 1 Kings 19, he has just come off of a great victory at Mount Carmel. But Elijah eventually makes his way to Mount Horeb, the very same mountain, and he is eaten up with discouragement. Why? As we jump ahead several hundred years, several hundred pages in our Bibles. All right, Jezebel has threatened to kill him, and it just sends him into a tailspin. Now, I wonder about this, and I say, well, wait a minute. He just had this tremendous victory in 1 Kings 18. How does he go from being top of the mountain to being down in the dumps within just a few verses? How does that happen? Has that ever happened to you? Was Elijah a manic depressive? No, I don't think I would diagnose him with that. We're going to apply our 21st century psychoanalysis on him. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't do that. Maybe he was. But what we do see is Elijah burned out, and he is discouraged. When we go from a really high down to a really low, how does that happen? Why does that happen? Okay. So this is serious. This is really serious. All right. Do you have some reasons in your life to be discouraged? Karen, you just retired. Do you have any reason in your life to be discouraged? Is there anything in your life? You could probably find something to be discouraged about besides Jeff. What if I were to tell you, let me tell you about somebody I know who's really, really in a tough spot. They just did an interview with Oprah for $7 million, and their whole family doesn't like them. And they get to travel all over the world and live in multi-million-dollar mansions. How would you like to have their problems? It's all relative. It's all relative. Seriously, here's a man who is just extremely dejected and discouraged. And what is the same exact answer God is going to give him? It's not about you, Elijah. It's never been about you. And I hope that can help us see the connection. I think what question number, and actually this isn't how it's numbered in there, but this is one of the questions on the sheet. Does God's provisions to Elijah before speaking to him tell you about how to help somebody with discouragement, how to overcome discouragement? We need to not only take care of people mentally, but physically as well. And Elijah needed physical nourishment. Have you ever had your blood sugar just drop because you're going 1,000 miles an hour and you're tired and you're stressed, and then somebody pulls you away and says, hey, you need to eat? And you feel so much better, and you go back at the same exact problem, and you have a whole better outlook and attitude, and hopefully better success. Yeah, we all can relate to that, can't we? And I think there's an important lesson there as well, that Elijah needed to be taken care of physically. And I guess that should just go through verse 8. And we will look at this a little bit next week as well. We've just got a couple minutes left. But what was God's way of helping Elijah? What did God do here in verses 9 through 18, I guess? What did God do for Elijah here in 1 Kings 19 to remind him? All right. So notice verse 10 and notice verse 14. What do you see that's similar? What do you see about 1 Kings 19 verses 10 and 14? They're the same. God asked Elijah, what are you doing here? And Elijah says, oh, let me tell you, I'm just telling you, everybody's out to get me. Life's horrible. And then this is what happens. the Lord passed by, and a great strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. Big blazing fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound, a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went and stood out at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him the second time and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah said, "I get the point, Lord. I get it, yeah." What did he do instead, though? He just repeated exactly the excuse he had made in verse 10. What's going on here? What is God doing to try to help Elijah snap out of this? By that demonstration of incredible power, and yet God is not in there. He's just demonstrating his power, and then that still small voice, just barely above a whisper, and says to him, "Hey, Elijah, what are you doing here?" Does that make an impression on you? It's rather dramatic, isn't it? What's going on? God is trying to take the focus off Elijah and help him realize God is powerful. Yeah, you need to remember the big picture. All right. Well, we're going to continue with that next week as we look at another mountain. So we're actually going to talk, I guess, a little bit about 1 Kings 17, 18, and 19. Primarily 18 and a little bit of 19. What's the overriding message that I want to leave you with tonight? It's not about you and me. It's about God. Whenever we make excuses, ultimately, what are we saying to God? It's your fault. And what's God say in response? Go. You got work to do. All right. Thank you for your participation. Let's go get to work.
I don't think it's quite time yet, so I'm a little bit early this time. It just turned 7:45. So, good evening. Welcome to our Wednesday night song service. I hope everyone enjoyed the classes. Our first song tonight will be number 438. Correct? Yes, 438. We're going to sing all 4 verses. Oh, so my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest in his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy vale, within the veil, on Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When his oath is covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood. When he around my soul gives way, he then is my hope and sway. Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found. On his righteousness alone, oh, blessed to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Excellent. And the next song is going to be number 665. In the dark of the midnight have I oft hid my face, while the storm howls above me, and there's no hiding place. Mid the crash of the thunder, precious Lord, hear my cry. Keep me safe till the storm passes by. Till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Keep me safe till the storm passes by. Many times Satan whispered, there is no, oh, there's no end in sorrow, and no hope by and by. But I know that with me, bright tomorrow, how the storm against the sky, till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Take me safe till the storm passes by. When the long night has ended and the storms come no more, let them stand in thy presence on that bright, peaceful shore, where the tempest never comes. Lord, may I dwell with thee in the storm passes by, till the storm is over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Let me stay till the storm passes by. Thank you all. And our final song is going to be number 738. I was very excited to see when the song is actually in this book. It's one of my favorites. My dad had an old a cappella cassette. We wore that thing out. Do, mi, so, mi. We will glorify the King of Kings. We will glorify the Lamb. We will glorify the Lord of Lords, who is the great I am. Lord Jehovah reigns in majesty. We will bow before his throne. We will worship him in righteousness. We worship him alone. He is Lord of heaven, Lord of earth. He is Lord of all who live. He is Lord above the universe. All praise to him we give. Hallelujah to the King of Kings. Hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah to the Lord of Lords, who is the great I am. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to see you all here tonight. I have just a few announcements to give, and then Jeff Turner has a closing prayer. First, John and Nelda are out tonight. John called me today just to give me an update that, they're quarantining right now because Nelda's father has COVID, and they were in contact with him. So they're staying in. I don't know how much longer they'll have to be quarantined. There are some cards in the back on this back table that Sandy has placed out there for different families who are affected by illnesses or encouragement. So if you haven't signed those, take a look at those. One of those cards is for Abby Evans, who's a friend of Benjamin's, a schoolmate of his and Caleb's. And we've announced previously about Abby. We have an update. She is doing better. She's getting physical therapy now. She's starting to walk again. And so that's all good. She probably has a few more weeks of rehab before she can come back home. So Abby, she's a junior in high school. Yeah, she's Benjamin's age. So normally healthy, obviously, and this tumor has really affected her quite severely. We're continuing with the Holy Bible reading that's been going on this week and next week. We're in the book of Luke, so please keep that in your focus. Also, the daylight savings time, is it spring forward? So that'll be this Sunday morning in the AM hours. So come Sunday at the right time to services. Other announcements, Jeff. Wow, okay. So if you didn't hear that on the live stream, Randy Harshbarger and Marilyn both with COVID, and they're needing prayers. That's right. Folks are going to Grand Canyon. Okay, so y'all be careful. Anything else? Okay, Jeff?
Our Father, we're indeed grateful that you've given us this day of life and health, and we're reminded that not everyone has this measure of health that they can assemble together. We're especially mindful of those that are fighting COVID, Mr. Davila and Randy and Marilyn Harshberger, and there's many others who are ill fighting this disease that we know very little about. We pray that things begin to turn the corner and to heal, and that we can lift all the restrictions that we have, and your saints can again meet freely and enjoy the fellowship of one another as you have intended. We ask your healing hand to be on all those others that are also fighting various illnesses, including Abby and many others who need your healing hand. Lord, we ask your forgiveness and to always be with us and guide us and in your way, and these things we ask in your Son's name. Amen.